Days ahead of his inauguration as the US president, the charges against Donald Trump do not seem to end, at least on paper. Special counsel Jack Smith released a report on Trump's efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. And here's what the much-anticipated report states, and I quote, "The through line of all of Mr. Trump's criminal efforts was deceit, knowingly false claims of election fraud, and the evidence shows that Mr. Trump used these lies as a weapon to defeat a federal government function foundational to the United States democratic process," unquote. Now, it also laid out the challenges that investigators face during investigation, including Trump's assertion of executive privilege to try to block witnesses from providing evidence and using his influence on social media to target witnesses, courts, and prosecutors. Donald Trump, meanwhile, responded by saying that the voters have spoken and that he's totally innocent, while also calling Smith a lame-brained prosecutor. Jack Smith even stated that he stands fully behind his decision to bring criminal charges, which he believes would have resulted in Trump's conviction had voters not voted him back to power. The report, which has been released just days before Trump is to return to the White House on the 20th of January, attempts to bring to light the frantic effort that Republicans had made to cling to power back in 2020. The document is expected to be the final Justice Department chronicle of accusations against Donald Trump. But the question many are asking is why now? Why did Jack Smith choose to release the report now, and that too when he has resigned a few days back? To talk more on this, I'm joined by Sarah Spector, political and legal pundit. I'm also joined by Vibhuti Jha, former Republican candidate for New York Assembly. Good evening and namaskar to both of you. Sarah Spector, to you first. You know, Donald Trump isn't wrong when he says that the voters have spoken. I am back to the White House. On 20th January, he'll be inaugurated as the next US president. So why release the report now? Why didn't you release it at that point in time? Sarah, could you unmute yourself, please?
I got it. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe there was a judge in Florida had ordered it not to be released. The Trump legal team had been trying to stop the release, and the federal judge in Florida, even though I don't believe she had authority over this report, she had basically asked them not to release it. And then they appealed it up to the Court of Appeals, and the Federal Court of Appeals they literally said, we stay it for 3 days until we look at it, and then they said you can release it. So I believe that's what the delay in time was that Trump was trying to stop it.
Sure, but what impact would it have, even if that is permitted now and Judge Cannon had, not allowed it earlier? What impact would it have it now?
Well, so he was appointed as special counsel for the Justice Department, which is the prosecutors for the American people. And even though he didn't have time because he was appointed too late, he did do an investigation. And normally investigations in America, they're public. If they're done by a police or the feds, they're public information. And even though it didn't get to trial, his report is basically public in the U.S. I don't know how it is in India, but things done by elected officials or appointed officials, prosecutors, that's all public record. So, and the American people wanted to know why he brought these charges, because a lot of people believe there was no basis for it, and he's letting people know there was a basis for it. It just didn't end up in a conviction.
Vibhuti Jha, what many say about this report coming out now, it being released right now, is the fact that perhaps not right now, but a few months down the line, when this entire celebration around Donald Trump winning, slows down a bit, dies down a bit, is when probably Democrats can use this against Donald Trump.
Yeah, you're asking me. Yeah, this is a very serious situation in America. A country of laws seems to be having real tragedy with laws in this country right now. I have switched from being a Democrat to independent to now Republican. Now, whatever has happened, as they say that, justice is the biggest thing in the world in democracies. But what we are looking at today is that a very great possibility that the Democratic Party or the opponents of Trump insinuated all these things because he was a presidential candidate. Had he not been a presidential candidate on his own statement, none of it would be happening. What would happen to the rule of law then? Whether you are a presidential candidate or not, or whether you are in a political process or not, he ought to have been tried if he has committed a crime. The issue here is very important that when Jack Smith, who is himself is a very remarkably suspect person in Department of Justice and FBI, he was investigating it, is everybody now knows. And that's why this election was important. Nothing could have done Trump a favor by not winning the election of 2020. It's a political issue, not a justice matter. Even in January 6th insurrection issue, which is all at the bottom of it all, you know now that he was not even given a moment to appear before Jan 6 committee. It is a one-sided report. Anybody who has any amount of sanity left would definitely want to know that in a country that is called a due process of law, the man who is accused was never given a chance to present his side of the story. The entire mainstream media has suppressed
Vibhuti Jha, it's interesting that you say that, because in the very same country, Donald Trump has had a hush money case against him and he's convicted in that, and the Supreme Court gave him an unconditional discharge. So his critics say that, you're talking about law. Here, we always knew that perhaps that's going to happen. Donald Trump is going to walk a free man in the hush money case.
The hush money case was a misdemeanor at best. In the previous system, he would have committed a misdemeanor, and the charges and the punishments for that were much lower. However, the New York State attorney and the law, they changed the law. They upped the entire process of misdemeanor to felony, and that's how it was convicted on those counts. But it was not Supreme Court that has waived all the penalty. It is the Judge Merchant, who was the supervising judge in this matter. He is the one who waived it. So this is very important for us to know. Trump survived a major lawfare against him because in Jan 6 case as well, if anybody remembers that, he was the one who was telling people, go peacefully, no violence, peace and calm. That was a protest thing for the way he felt that he was being, he had lost the election in an unfair play. Look at Jack Smith's other mandate was a document usage, the presidential immunity for documents. Biden gets completely exonerated by Judge Liu, or Judge whoever it was, by the special prosecutor, who said that Biden is so out of mind and so senile that we can't possibly handle a Justice Department investigation or trial. That was the reason for not pursuing it. But important part to bear in mind, whatever Trump did, it is a one-sided trial. Biden was completely exonerated. Not exonerated, was not even pursued. He did the vital documents, state secret documents, as vice president and senator. That was a violation of law, but that was out of the window. In this particular case as well, the special counsel...
let me get in Sarah Spector to respond to you, Vibhuti Jha. Yeah, Sarah, do you believe that Donald Trump did not get a fair chance to defend himself? There were, of course, more than 1,500 people who were charged in the Capitol, riots. There was also more than 250 convictions that happened, perhaps one of the largest Department of Justice investigations that one has seen in the United States. But do you believe that Donald Trump did not get a fair chance to defend himself in this entire case?
In the New York case, he chose not to take the stand. Okay, he had the ability to take the stand, and he didn't do it. So he definitely had an opportunity there, and you have a right not to take the stand in America, and he chose to take the Fifth Amendment. So he had every ability to defend himself, and he had an excellent lawyer helping him, and he still got convicted by a jury of 12 people in America. And I hate that somebody would come on this show and say that a free and fair trial, because I'm an ex-prosecutor and I'm a criminal defense attorney, I think we've got an amazing justice system. And I wasn't in the courtroom, but 12 people found him guilty, and he did not choose to defend himself. As far as the investigation goes, he was asked, his attorneys were asked to provide information. They refused to turn it over. They chose to invoke executive privilege rather than cooperate with the January 6th committee. He also, Trump, he even though he said go peacefully, he also told them basically not to accept the results, to fight. The night before, Senator Cruz told everybody to fight tomorrow. And then even when his vice president was in mortal danger and people were asking him to stop the crowd or stop the mob after 3 hours, he said he didn't care that his own vice president could have been hung. I mean, this is some crazy stuff. And he's got a social media platform to explain all of this to the American public, as well as X. He's got X as well, and he's never been able to explain any of this.
And therefore, Sarah Spector, can I understand from you how you see this moving forward? Do you see any substantial impact of this report being released on Donald Trump in the near future?
No. I think. I mean, I as a legal scholar, I enjoyed reading it. It clarified some things to me. I think as a former prosecutor, I understand. I've taken on very, very difficult cases that I knew were just, and sometimes you just have to go forward. Jack Smith was appointed too late. Merrick Garland did an abhorrent job. He should have appointed Jack Smith on day one, and 4 years. It would have taken several years to put this through the courts, but it didn't. I think that it's important for history that this report be documented. It's very well documented, and I just think for history's sake, I think it will stick. But as far as the American public goes, I mean, we're split down the middle. 50% believe that this never should have been investigated, and 50% of our people believe that, a terrible injustice was done and that our democracy was targeted.
Okay. Vibhuti Jha, now, of course, Sarah, more than 50% of Americans do think that Donald Trump should be back in the White House, and that's why the kind of victory that Republicans saw this time around. But, how do you see this, Vibhuti Jha? How are the Republicans seeing this? Do they also see this as perhaps desperate attempts by critics of Donald Trump to get back at him with a feeling of vengeance? Because now he is the president of the United States. The voters have given their decision. And therefore, these kind of attempts perhaps also reflect the kind of desperation that the critics of Donald Trump have at the moment.
Thank you very much. Yes, that is a very, very vital issue here, that Donald Trump has been viewed by the Democrat Party and people who oppose him as the ultimate evil. And to get him somehow or the other, it is not the first time. If you remember, I remember clearly, but the day he was sworn in 2017, soon after his swearing in, there was an immediate rumor went on like a viral thing that Trump has asked Martin Luther King's bust in the White House to be removed. Totally false. This is the kind of, the acts that the Democratic Party has played. We are looking at, as a common man, I'm not as sharp or, lawyer driven like Sarah is. I'm observing the law as a participant. I admire this country and for the laws and the issues that are institutional framework that exists here. But what I'm also witnessing as a common man, as a common voter, is the extent to which the lawfare or the law is used and abused in the name of law. This is the greatest country that prides itself in saying that we are a country of laws. Fifth Amendment that Sarah referred to is a constitutional protection for a particular accused so that he doesn't incriminate himself. It's not an illegal act. This is what is important for us to understand, that if a person takes the recourse to legal process, then he's blamed, oh, he's not cooperating. Just remember, Bill Clinton, the great president of Democratic Party and America of his times, he even demanded to know the definition of what is. Look, think about it. When Hillary Clinton was charged for whatever she was, for her document case, Mr. Comey had used the word extreme carelessness. If he had used deliberate negligence, she would have been tried. But the wordplay that was used exonerated her that it is a case not worth pursuing. When you apply the legal standards in a manner that if it suits me, I'll get you. If it doesn't suit me, I'll let you go. That's the way, unfortunately, the laws are being applied here. Today, thanks to technology and interactions that we have, we get to know a lot more. Think about it, Shreya, in our system, in democratic system.
So of course we'll have to wait and watch.
Last word on which I wanted to say. Think about it.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and watch.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and watch, Vibhuti Jha, how this really pans out, whether or not this does have a substantial impact in the near future on Donald Trump and the Republican presidency in the next 4 years. But I'll have to wrap it here. We have a next important conversation coming up, and that is also affected by Donald Trump getting in. That is the Israel-Hamas deal. But thank you very much to both of you, Sarah Spector and Vibhuti Jha, for joining us on Global Mirror and sharing your perspectives.